with my agency, there's a lot less red tape. There's a lot less of that bureaucracy that I try to always keep away. But, again, we try to treat everything like a safe space so that they can focus on, well, before these were the old rules and I couldn't do this and people just didn't want to have us mingling. It's like this separation where it's like I came from the AV video side. They don't want to work with the print people. And I'm like, well, it's a community.
You're listening to Creative Leadership with Heart, a podcast that inspires people to take action and be the leader they were born to be. I'm Coach Rico, and I'm known for coaching and training executives, leaders, founders, and high performers at Fortune 100 businesses, startups, and more. I'm a 20-year creative executive, leadership and life coach, author, speaker, and serial entrepreneur. I'm here to answer your questions about leadership and personal development while also asking you questions that can unlock your untapped potential. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Creative Leadership with Heart. We have design extraordinaire and owner of Zadie Creative, Mr. Leonard Samuels. How you doing, Leonard?
Good, man. How are you doing? Great to see you. I haven't seen you since last year, right? Can you believe we're already going to be like celebrating Christmas this year? It's insane.
I know. Could you believe it's February?
I cannot believe it. We're moving.
Yeah,
moving fast.
It's moving fast.
Yeah.
But thanks for being on. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being part of the podcast. It's your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So jumping right in, this is Creative Leadership with Heart. You own your own design team and your own design company. But first, I want to talk about what got you into the creative field to start with. So tell me a little bit about your journey. How'd you end up where you are and what got you started?
I know, right? It was like, what's our origin story? What's our Joseph Campbell journey to where we go? Always feel like when I tell this story, how do we not make it a villain arc and more of a I'm that main character, right? So I went to public school. I was born in the year 1980 something. Was in Taft High School. Went to Cal State Northridge. Shout out to Northridge State Schools. All you state schoolers out there, you can do it too. That's right.
Product of Cal State schools.
Yeah.
I went to Sac State.
Right. And then went to grad school in New York. I went to Pratt for a good semester and then dropped out because I got my career started out there. What was I doing prior to all this design stuff is I was working retail guys. I was at the Gap, selling pants, on a seasonal job. I was a terrible cashier. I couldn't remember all the awesome sales. I'm not promoting Gap. I'm just telling you they had awesome sales during Black Friday season. And then they're just like, why don't you go be a greeter? You have all your teeth. Go be a greeter. And I was like, all right, that's fine. Right. And then I would keep my little portfolio in my back pocket because what's the Hollywood dream, guys, is that some agent or some producer or artist is going to be in there and going to be like, you look like you have that it factor. You would happen to have your portfolio on you, would you? And that's when you had the printed portfolios where you're just like, yeah, right here.
Oh, man.
Right. Back when you would go to Swain's and purchase your stuff in that heavy acrylic and you'd be like, take it to your interviews and be like, you have to clean everything off your table, put it down. So anyways, went to graduate school, got my career started, which is hard for key art base. It's not a lot of key art agencies out there. Most of it's in fashion and traditional marketing and stuff. So I was also working retail in New York as well. It was the first time I had experienced 15-degree weather being from LA and the Valley. When I said I'm from the Valley, I'm super Valley boy. I've got 6 skateboards. I went through my my transitional surfing phase. And then I realized Black people don't like water. This is where these conversations are going to go, guys. So just buckle up. This is the light zone.
This is what keeps it interesting.
Yeah. I don't like the seaweed and the jellyfish and the drowning aspect of it, but that's a whole different history. And then, yes, got my stuff started out there. I was doing a lot of jobs in New York. I don't know if anybody's ever been to New York or if we have any East Coasters, but their personalities tend to be a lot sharper. They don't want to do this beat around the bush stuff. They just get right to the facts. So, the personality that I have, I just have to be me. It was like that song, You Have to Be You. And you know, adjust, so to speak, of okay, so they don't want a party clown. They just want someone that's going to give them answers and get the fuck out of there.
Nice. So
So yeah, go ahead.
yeah, let me even take a step back. What was the moment you knew as a kid growing up, or like even if it was during school or maybe working retail? What
Yeah.
was the moment you knew you wanted to be in this industry?
The moment I knew I wanted to be in this industry, once I discovered that you can do art digitally, I was like, finally, an easier solution. My mom always put me in those recreational art classes, which were great, and I was, try to get my traditional skills up. And then once I got through school and stuff like that, I realized like you're either good at art or you're really bad, or you need to find, a marketable, direction that you're moving towards. It's like, well, how do you subjectively say you're good at art? And that's not even grammatically correct. You're good at art. But once I figured out like you could do it digitally, I would just use Microsoft Word or Microsoft Paint, and I would do the little click art and stuff like that. And I'm like, damn, this is the best. I'd like run to, Ralph's and print everything and be like, I want to be a graphic designer, But it wasn't until I was in college that I realized that I could be a key art designer. So once that door had opened, I was like, the sepia of the Wizard of Oz world that I lived in had changed the color, and I was like, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life.
Yeah, was there a specific title that you worked on or something you did
They
in
would
that
give
class?
us like old titles, but honestly, they would just say like, go online, go to Google or Bing, if I should date myself, and find imagery and just make your own artwork. Like that was, I did like some Harry Potter stuff. I did before Captain America really even came out, the first one. I was finding concept art and trying to put it together, and Sucker Punch and all those different, movies. And, looking back at it, I was like, oh, this is terrible. But at the time I was like, I might be the best. I might be the best, guys.
Yeah, we all it's also limited to like what tools we had, right? Like I
Exactly.
remember the days of MS Paint
Yeah.
very well.
Yeah.
Even comping product like wireframes in Microsoft Paint, if you can believe that. That probably
Yeah.
dates me too, because I was born in the 1970s something. You're in the 80 something. I was in the
Yeah.
70s somethings. Um, but so moving on to, that's fantastic, right? Just for me, film, and like I used to shoot movies with my friends when we were in middle
Oh,
school
right
on
on.
those little camcorders, right?
Yeah.
And that's what got me into editing with two VCRs, and that's
Mhm.
what really got me into
Yeah.
this creative field, right? Like that's when I was like, oh, I want to do this. I would edit dunk videos with my friends. Like we would have
Yeah.
a 7 foot rim in the backyard, and we would just film and edit.
Yeah.
And that's what really got me going and why I
Yeah.
wanted to get into the creative field.
Yeah.
Um, so with you could talk about your agency or just you personally, but what is your mission? Like, what do you want to do with your art and your company?
That's such a great artist question to ask. I should have a scarf on when I even talk about this, but I could like casually throw over. Before we get into that, I also want to do a quick shout out because you had Andy Lerma on, and Andy's the GOAT. If you are blessed enough to be able to like cross paths with Andy, that dude will open doors for you, but you got to run through them. If he doesn't open them, he'll unlock them for you.
Mhm.
That dude could get like emails from Nigerian princes, and I just imagine him sitting there and be like, dude, I love your energy. I love where you're coming from, but just like get your pitch deck together and I'll see what I can do to put in the right places. Not a good place right now, but let me see what I can do for you. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
He's one of
yeah,
I need to have him back on.
yeah.
Um, if you didn't listen to that one,
Listen
finish
to
this one first
There's a lot
and
of
then go
great
back.
ones. All of the people that you've had are fantastic, but I will personally call because I know Andy that he is great, and he also put his personal email out there, which is wild. So he will do everything he can because he believes. How dare he be a humanitarian and change this whole conversation to talk about him?
Well, I mean, it's actually it's a good way because I think this we talked a little bit earlier. I think this like collides with your personal mission, but the
Yeah,
things that Andy and I talked about, and this has always been something that we talked about even when I was still at Netflix, is how do we open more doors? How do we create more opportunity? And how
yeah,
do we have more people who look like us
right,
actually work on titles that have people that look like us, right?
yeah, exactly,
Because Hollywood is probably one of the
Hollywood and banking, sorry, banking folks that are out there, it's probably one of the most traditional industries out there. And for as progressive as sometimes they want to be or want to make it, it's still
Yeah.
very, very one note.
Yeah.
It's getting better, but I know one of the things that I wanted to do, and I know the things that Andy is doing now, is creating that access. And
Yeah.
he doesn't just unlock it; he opens the door. You just have to walk through it, right?
You have to go through it. You'll do that. You don't realize, like, for other people, I know you realize it, but for some people, they don't realize how much work, and he's putting his neck out on the line.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone is saying, like, okay, look, I'll do my part, all you have to do is just meet me halfway. That's it. But some people they're just not ready to take that position yet. And that's also kind of like what I want to talk about is I didn't want to have my own company. I know it's crazy to say that I have my own agency and all that good stuff, but I didn't want to have it. I just wanted to be a lifer. I just wanted to work at a place, and then that's it until the day I die, and have the status quo. But I think when you look at the things that happen in your life, those landmark moments, and you see, like, oh, maybe I do like to have leadership roles. Maybe I do like to have my own creative liberties and bring in a group of people and champion them and so and so. But just to kind of talk about, like, where did my company even, like, boom from? Because for someone that did not want to have any of this, I just wanted to have the opportunity of, can I go to a screening? Can I just work on these comps, and can I do this and do that? And having this whole retail background for years and years and years. And, like, before even that, or during that time, I was also a camp counselor. So I have a very, like, tangible background. I had the high shorts, I had the whistle. Get Fox 40s, guys. Those are the whistles to get. All right. Don't chap your lips. Don't have that metal taste. All right, Fox 40. So moving in that direction, we all experienced the pandemic, right? Pandemic, horrible time. And during that time, my grandparents had passed, and that put me on this different trajectory. I had experienced grief, and I also kind of want to talk about, like, working through grief. I don't know if you've ever, lost anybody that you love, or a friend or family member in any case. But when you go through that process, it can feel like you're just falling. Everything feels disconnected. Life doesn't even matter anymore. Plus, it was like during the pandemic time, so people are just, like, dying left. All you just were seeing, like, the numbers were tallying up. And then on the agency and studio side, people were losing their, and other sides as well, but people were losing their jobs left and right. There were these red wedding style mass layoffs where you go into a room and they're just like, so how are you enjoying your time here? And you're like, great. And you're like, okay, well, this is the last day. And you're just like, got me good. I'm going to take my pencils with me. These are mine. I brought these with me. But with all of that happening, I just felt like, the answer I usually give people is that I got burned out. It was time to change direction. That's fair. That's normal. That's part of the answer. But the other half of that I don't go into, like, a whole explanation of why my company and agency had started, was that I just felt like I wasn't even living my life anymore. Or to begin with, I was textured as somebody else's world. When you look at a stock photo and you're like, this is our room of designers, and then you see, like, that one, person in the corner, and they're just kind of, like, blurred out, like, in walking. That's how I perceive myself looking back. It's like, yes, we help fill out the image, but what is the importance? And I stand by every agency, every job that I have ever had. Thank you for the opportunities, because I can't be to where I am without them. I feel like, from a boss level, all they want you to do is grow. They even say it. They're not just saying it because HR is standing behind them. They're saying it because they genuinely want you to progress. Now, when you become, a challenger, or the ops, as the children today like to say, the ops, you might not get that same welcoming, but there is a level of respect that says, hey, I can see you're forging your own path. Everybody has to start somewhere. So, like, where do you go with that? And on the grief side, I didn't even realize I was still experiencing grief. I just felt like I'm just going to do whatever I want in my life now. In life, they want you to zig all the time. And then once you stop zigging and you just zag like a mother, then people are just like, what are you doing? And you're just like, I'm going to take my ball and I'm going to go home, guys. I'm going to come back, but I'm going to go somewhere else for a minute.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you mentioned that. Like, I'm glad you were experienced in good agencies, because I've heard a lot of horror stories about agencies, but also just the, I want to go back to this a thing you said where you felt like the blurred image and like the bokeh person in the
Yeah.
back,
Okay. Yeah,
right?
that's the word. You are
Or
informed.
or the I'm just happy to be here,
Yeah.
right? Because it's so interesting, because there's almost that with Hollywood, there's almost that you should feel lucky to be here,
Yeah.
right? And you maybe shouldn't want more than that, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think this is new news, but I've often said this, right? Like, I loved my school experience, right? But what school taught me is to be a good employee.
Yeah.
Didn't teach me how to think independently. It didn't teach me how to do those things, right?
Yeah.
So when I got into the workforce, I was just like, I just want to be a good employee. I'll work for somebody for like 30, 40 years,
Yeah. You
maybe
just
jump
keep your
around a
head
little
down
bit.
and you work.
Right. And so, like, knowing that, and I talked to you a little bit about this before, is
Mm.
there's not a lot of people that look like us in leadership roles,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so as I started to progress in my career, I didn't even want some of those roles that I got. But I had to think beyond myself. I had to think
Yeah.
beyond, like, this isn't just for me. One,
Mhm.
I know this team really well, and if nobody speaks up for this team,
Yeah.
what's going to happen to it? And then
Yeah.
two, there's nobody that looks like me in like any significant leadership role in
Yeah.
these big companies, let alone like a place like Netflix or like Zappos or things like that, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, so I almost felt a duty and a calling to take those roles.
Yeah.
And I had to do a lot of untraining of like the classical what I was learning in school,
Yeah.
right? And so when you say, right, you were grieving a little bit and you took your ball and you're going to do what I want to do, I think of it as like undoing all the
Yeah.
stuff that people taught us we should be or told us we should be,
Yeah.
taking time to come back and say, like, no, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And you told me that story when we were prepping for this last year back in like
Yeah.
November, December.
That's right, guys. This
And
is all prep, pre-rehearsed. I have a script right in front of me. This is going just as planned.
and that is the same like vision I had in my head as you're telling the story now.
Yeah. And it's hard because again, like you don't have to go through grief. You don't have to have your Batman story kind of deal, like your Spider-Man, it doesn't have to be that graphic, but there's a moment that you just, I don't want to say like break, because then the light comes through when when cracks come in, and then it's like a whole thing. But you get to a point where you're just like, you can bleep me out, but like, fuck it. That's what it comes down to. You're just like, I just want to live my life. I want to do my own thing and change trajectory. And again, like this was during the pandemic. So I basically started, like the first steps I took was, again, like this is for the event that I'm going to be hosting. We'll get into it. We're going that direction, but like get your contracts together, find out what you want to do, have a choice that you want to make in terms of your company. And one of the important things that I learned was that your company is its own living entity. You need to give it time to grow. You can't just be like, oh, I expect it to be this, and then it will be this. No, it can evolve. It can change. Let it become what it needs to become. Because when my agency had started, we were just doing literary sources. I was going to like comic book conventions and trying to tell other, young artists or, new artists, just really in general, that maybe go at a different approach. Maybe we add like a TV film marketing vibe to what you have. Like I'll do things pro bono, not anymore, but I'll do things pro bono if the project is right. If you have something that is like really all you need is like that extra push, come talk to me and we can talk about doing things pro bono. But yeah, then, I was doing stuff for operas and things in that nature. And so, I had to coordinate the fashion department that are for those shows, and so that we could work together. And I had to do the scouting to find talent, and all of that has helped with where I was going. And I didn't even know the company was forming itself. Like all I was doing was just like, again, it's like the Spider-Man thing or the superhero thing where you're just drawing your costume and you're just like, wow, this looks like crap. And then once everything comes together, you hit your stride, and you go through your, you know, your journey as it continues, and our journey is still going. But like, we started with 5 contractors, and then now we're at, you know, since last year, 19 contractors that we, you know, have exponentially been growing, and we're going on our 3rd year as well. But like, what does the agency, you know, mean? It's called Zadie Creative. Zadie is Yiddish. I happen to be Jewish, just like Lenny Kravitz. And my name is also Leonard. Not saying we're the same person, but you can do your own conspiracy theories. So, Zadie, I was very close to my grandparents. I spent like almost every day with them for 30 plus years. And then once they had passed, and I was like, okay, well, what do we do now? And I was talking to my wife, and she was like, okay, I'm going to tell you this quick story because I know we're pressed on time. But I was trying to figure out what the name of it was going to be. And she was like, well, why don't you call it Zadie, because your grandfather, and he was, you know, he was my best friend, essentially. Not only my father, but my best friend. Come from a single parent home. So like, again, my mom had to drop me off with my grandparents all the time. So once, you know, my grandmother had passed, unfortunately, and then he had passed, I think it was just like a sadness in the chest kind of deal. Cause he passed, like, I want to say like almost eight months after she had died. My wife's like, well, why don't you call it Zadie Creative? And then I was going to go meet my friends at the funeral. Well, not the funeral, cause we already had the funeral, but at the location where his tomb is and everything. And so for Jewish culture, we bring a rock, put the rock on the placard or the tomb, whatever it's set up as a remembrance. And then it wasn't like a windy day or anything like that, or rainy or anything. It's just a normal, like, sunny day. And so I put this paper down, heavy rock on the paper. I put one also on my grandmother's. And so I tell my friends, I'm going to start my own company. It's going to be called Zadie Creative. Literally, the wind only blew that rock and that paper off my grandfather's plaque. It only his was affected. My grandmother stayed still. I'm sure she was probably like, couldn't call it Bubby Creative. And I was like, oh, so close. Why only the grandfather? It's like, no, I love them both. It's an honor to them both. Also, my grandmother always wanted me to have a very close relationship to my grandfather, which I did. But only his was affected. And so it was just kind of like a clear sign of like, I don't know what's going to happen after we die. But if this was in any indication of just the right timing or what, then I know that I can do this.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. And yeah, it's meant to be, right? For something
It's
like that
meant
to
to
happen.
be. Yeah.
What were some of and this is it's to help us segue, but what were some of the struggles you had,
We have so many
like,
segues.
growing up?
We're building up, people.
Yeah, we are definitely building
We
up.
are edging to what the need of this conversation is. So stay tuned. I'm sorry, what was your question?
Yeah, absolutely. What were some of the struggles you had, even like earlier in your career, and then
Yeah.
also building your agency?
I could not get any work in Hollywood. I know that's such a Hollywood thing to say, but I couldn't get any work in Hollywood before I left to New York. So I graduated from CSUN, and I didn't have an internship or anything prior. So if you don't have an internship while you're in college, it is okay. Like, you can still do things. I was at Starbucks applying on Craigslist. Shout out to Craigslist for only the good stuff, not the other stuff. It's a long list, guys. So this agency called Zadie Creative reached out to me, and they're like, come in for an interview. And I showed them my portfolio, which was mocked up of a bunch of random, images that I made up online. They were pleasantly surprised by it. I got hired from there. But the struggles that I faced were not having any work experience. How do you have work experience if nobody will give you a shot? Plus, like, the people that were giving us shots, and I won't bring up any art schools, but you guys know who you are. It's almost like a club. If you come from this school, this art school, then you have a much higher chance of seeing it on a resume and being like, yeah, I'll come here. But then when I moved to New York for graduate school, and it changed my entire life. Like, again, like I'd never seen a daytime mugging before. I had never seen I had never seen falling snow before. Walking to work and taking the train and all these different experiences, it just like hardens you into, it shapes you into this new thing. And I like to say, like, LA raised me, New York made me. And so once I came back from New York, I was like on the tarmac and basically got a job. And I was just a new product, And so I got that going, but also at the same time, it's like, how do you, again, like being of color, I don't like to be like, oh, it's because I'm black that they won't put me in these meetings and stuff, and it's abrasive and it's this and that. And it's like, okay, I get it. But it's also who like that's another thing. And I also want to talk to like, the people today. I know we're of color, but when you're trying to get work, diversity is incredibly important, especially now more than ever. I know before, we had the movements and all these different things, but people want to work with diversity. People do want to work with diversity. It's just a matter of having your having your shit together and being confident of like what direction you want to go and speak with, authenticity to things. I had a boss that said, closed mouths don't get fed. And he would say it all the time. And he was like, if you want to move further, then you gotta say it out loud. People aren't mind readers, And it like goes back to just being textured to the environment. I would say like, hey, you guys think I can go to this meeting? It's like, oh, maybe the next one, and maybe the next one, and maybe the next one. But it's like, if you keep telling somebody like, maybe, do you think I can, or I want to. Want is such a powerful thing, right?
Or I am going to
Yeah.
that meeting.
Yes, I am going to
Especially
that
if you're
meeting.
like especially if you're the primary on that, if you're the
Yeah.
primary designer on it, like I
Yeah.
am going to that meeting.
Yeah. But then you might go to the meeting, and then the meeting is like Big Mama's House 4, and you're like, oh, I see why I'm in this meeting. But how do I ride this train out? How do I say,
Yeah.
okay, well, let me crush Big Mama's House 4?
Yeah, that's a really great point, right? Where this isn't for tokenism. This
Right.
is for true diversity, right? And
Right.
that's where I think a lot of people get it wrong. I think
Yeah.
they think and I don't want to call out any agencies or studios, but like they
Yeah.
think because it's a black title, you need someone with black, and like that's the way diversity happens, and it's not. It's also you have 80% white titles. Does that mean
Yes.
you're going to have white people on all 80% of those titles?
Yeah.
No, you just need different perspectives because people automatically look at race, but you have to look at also socioeconomic background,
Yep.
like education, all those things, right?
Yeah.
So just because we look like the people who are in the title
Yeah.
doesn't mean automatically, oh, you just have that person work on it, right? Because now you
Right.
become tokenism and stereotypical,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
there's a fine line between that. And I think we're still working through that. It's taking people time to really understand the differences between that, right?
Right.
You don't bring diverse perspectives just so they can work on all the minority, the people of color titles. You bring
Yeah.
them in because they can make all your titles look better.
Exactly. And they just have the skill for it. But also like the way that, let me tell you like how I run my agency is that, yes, we'll work on like black projects, but I'm not going to have only black people work on black projects. It's going to be a very diverse range because I don't know if everybody knows this, but white people love black culture. But that that ranges out to Latin and Asian and so on and so forth. But we treat it. I always have to preface whenever I do like our group projects. We work on other things as well. We just did Night Court season 2, which is hilarious. People, please watch Night Court. It's such an easy watch and it's so much fun. Melissa Ranch is hilarious. But when we do those type of projects that are more culturally focused, we have a very diverse team so that we can funnel out or funnel through. What is the right approach to go, and how do we broaden the market as well, for lack of a better word, broaden it out. It's more of a temple, but Yeah, I feel like everybody brings something to the conversation, and we're also there to educate each other and not chastise and give each other a hard time, razz one another for not knowing something or saying something. You're like, that is not culturally appropriate. It's like, well, I'm glad I didn't write that down and put it through a movie, because also at the same time, you also have to keep in mind that the studios are faceless for the most part, and so when they put out a movie, it has to feel culturally like not synthetic. It needs to feel authentic.
Hmm.
And that's what we do, is we speak authentically to projects. And it's not to say like, oh, we can only do, projects based off race and color. But again, like if I go back to Night Court, you're not going to be like, damn, a black person, that owns a company definitely designed that. And it's like, we're not a black company. We're a black owned company. I think people miss that little separation
Right.
to what you're trying to bring to them.
Absolutely. And I'm glad we're bringing more awareness to this
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah,
And I do want to get into what you're planning. So you
yes,
have an event coming up. Could you tell
yes.
us a little bit about the impetus for this event, and then who's it for, etc.?
I will tell you that. So if everybody that's uncomfortable with race now, they can jump to this part in the conversation. Um, so I'm
You
hosting
come
a
back. You come back.
you come back through the digital door frame. But they stayed for the Andy Lerma stuff. Anyways, so I'm hosting a private event for new and existing business owners in the world of creative. That's the most important part. It's not just for agency people. It's not for studio people. This is encompassing all of creative. So you can be in entertainment, you can be in fashion, photography, etc. And I want to have discussions on topics of, like the obstacles that you went through, kind of like what we're having. I know we're going to offline about this, but your milestones, your successes, so that we can share our stories and help lift each other up. This event will, have a panel discussion. We're going to do one-on-one engagement with other people, and this is an invite-only event, so that you don't feel like, oh, everybody's coming to this type of thing, where it's just going to get, oversaturated with freelancers and things like that. And it's like, no, this is for people that are, again, have their own company, are starting their own company, and everything in between. Because I want to have a conversation with people and ask them, how did you get through the pandemic? That was like the great killer, for a lot of businesses. And it's like, well, did your business start from the pandemic? Did it, how did you navigate through it? How did you get through the SAG strike and the writers strike? And, what are steps that you're taking to grow yourself? I want to focus very heavily on the mental aspect of everything, because when it comes to finding your clients and how much should you charge, again, like that's not important. Honestly, if you want to find clients, like just start with LinkedIn. You can easily start there and then just grow out. Also, again, if you're just like, I don't know how to get more business, just start looking up events that are coming up and going to those events. I know that you're an author, Rico. I consider myself a bit of a writer myself. Not a great writer, but a great storyteller. That's what editors are for. So it takes a team. It takes a team. And those are the conversations, like, again, want to have. But to the writing point, USC is having their LA Times book fair. So always something to consider for anybody that loves writing or is trying to sell a book or just wants to have a conversation within marketing, because they do have established people there that's like through Marvel or DC or Penguin and so and so. But there's always a way to grow what you have and not feel like you're alone. I feel like one of the challenges that I face when I talk about this is that we'll have people that are a bit more I want to say jaded in what they've experienced, and I get it. They don't want to feel like they're giving away any trade secrets, which is fine, which is fair. But this is not focused on that. This is more of, hey, are you a parent, and how do you find the fucking time to be a parent and run your company, or just be like at the top of your platform? Because for me, when I was pushing through my grief stages and getting the company started, I spent like almost a solid year of just pushing everything out and just super laser focused. I would work like 18 hours a day. I was emailing 50 people a day. I was working so hard that literal tears were falling from my face while I was working. I'd have to stop and be like, oh my God, am I crying? While I'm like sitting here, I would just forget to blink for so long that like everything was just working against itself. But at the same time, I was a man possessed. And I felt like this is where I need to go, And I feel like I wasn't taking care of myself. And I want to hear like, how do people like, are there things that they wish that they could have changed in the beginning? Are there things that, did their company die and they revived it? Because that's, I think, such an important thing is if you have your own company, if it dies, you don't die. If it dies, you don't die. It's almost like, oh, I'm just going to put it on life support for a bit. And I'm going to continue to do my own arts and my own creative process. And then you might come back to that company. Now here's the kicker, right? If your company is broad titled enough, you can always say the company's been around for X amount of time, right? Because now you have more history and lineage. I've been doing this since 1920, and it's like, oh, well, the title is so ambiguous. I didn't know where you're going to be. But where can you go with all of this? Also the people that I'm inviting, you're probably wondering like, who's on the invite list? Who's on the guest list? Yes, you are, Rico, and we will offline about it. But I want to invite employment lawyers so that they can help get your contracts together, or at least look at your current contract. You might have a contract from, the 80s where it just said, I'll pay you in cocaine, but you forget to check it. And you're like, I should probably change that. So unless that's like your party, but yes, employment lawyers are important. Photographers, because people forget how important photography is. You might be like, well, I'll just take a photo off my phone. And it's like, maybe you should just do like a professional photographer in some respect, so that it doesn't look like you were at like Home Depot or, somewhere at a park. And you're just like, people are in the background. Just take yourself more seriously. Also, it's the story you want to tell. Writers, I think that's also a very important thing, not to give away like trade secrets, but like the way that I got started was that I had professional writers that would take what I've written, they'll adjust it. I'm not doing like the Google or Alta Vista. You guys remember Alta Vista? That was quite an era. Pulled that out of the capsule right there.
Yeah, Alta Vista, Netscape.
Yeah. And then they would adjust, my writing, and we go back and forth, and everything just takes time. And once it felt, more authentic and the message that I wanted to send out, then I would have that as my cold calls. And since then I've adjusted it. So I think you just have to keep in mind, like everything evolves, but it takes a team. If you feel like you have to do everything yourself, then you go fast, but you're not going to go far.
That's 100%.
Right.
That's the things that's the mistake most solopreneurs make, is they think they can do it all.
And
Which,
also,
to your point, they can.
Yeah.
But how good are they going to be at all of it?
Right. It takes a team. And also, if you think that you're operating, something that is different, and you're not being noticed, there's chatter. There's chatter. People know what you're doing. And I think that's the fear aspect, because I think that's what held me back, was I just felt like, oh, if I talk about it out loud, then it makes it more real than it is. And then once I just like committed to it, I was like, there's no other way to go. And so, for my agency, it's a 100% contractor base, which is unconventional, very unconventional. And why is it contractor base? Is because, again, during the pandemic, during all the strikes, people were losing their jobs, and also people just didn't want to do the same jobs anymore. And so I started finding everybody. A lot of people are very surprised when they're like, how did you find these people? And I'm like collecting people like Infinity Stones. I'm just out there like Thanos, and it just like sticks to the hand. I'm like, yes, because we are a team. we are, these are my infinity stones. We are, I would talk to them and ask them like, well, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And they would tell me like, oh, maybe I just had a kid and I'm trying to take some time to myself. And I have these other talents. And I'm like, well, how would you kind of like, the what's his name? The guy that sells like the Billy something with the infomercials. And he's like, but wait, there's more. So, I'd come to him, RIP Billy. I think he's gone. But I would ask them like, so where do you want to go and what do you want to do? And would you be okay if, we can contract work together and then you just go off and you do your own thing? So we've had people for 2 weeks. We've had people for, 2 years plus. So it's really just a matter of what their flexibility looks like. I'm very fair. I just, tell them like, I'll check in with you every so often just for like an hour. And then you just go off and do your own thing and work out, how we can utilize their skills to their maximum potential. Because they might be like, I'm just talking from like an agency standpoint. They might just be like, oh, well, I'm a producer. It's like, okay, that's great. Do you speak another language? Do you have great writing skills? Do you have 360 skills? And I try to get as much from them as possible. So I say like, oh, well, if your schedule's really busy, maybe I could just have you be like a creative director and just like pitch ideas and then you just bounce.
Yeah, I love that. Like, there's this, I love that you build it that way because there's this automatic negative connotation sometimes with contractor, right? But
Right.
to me, just like you said, like some people, even at Netflix, we had contractors who never wanted to convert to full time because they like
Yeah.
the flexibility. They
Yeah.
can dip in and out, right? They
Yep.
could do a bunch of work for 6 weeks and then like disappear for
Yeah.
5 weeks,
Yeah.
right? And
Exactly.
that flexibility is, people want that, especially now, right? Your
People
point
want it
exactly.
so much right now. And it's like, bro, you got to read these tea leaves. Like, look at where everybody's going. They don't want to go to an office. I understand that. Although I miss an office. This rectangle is the world that I live in. I don't even know what's happening outside. I just watch the news and I'm just like, I don't know. I guess, but it's old news.
Even the news is
Yeah,
toxic.
I know. We won't get into it because this is a fun conversation.
Yeah.
That's for the second podcast. But yeah, I just see that everybody wants to work, freelance, and even for the people that tell me like, "Hey, I'm looking for a job," it's I'm like, that's perfectly fine. I get it, 100%. While you're waiting to pick up that job, if I have a project that comes in, would you be okay to hop on the project in the background? And then if your job goes through, then you just dip and I just jump in for you. So it's an easy transition. And that's what I try to focus on is like, what's the easiest transition for people? Because with my agency, there's a lot less red tape. There's a lot less of that bureaucracy that I try to always keep away. But, again, we try to treat everything like a safe space so that they can focus on, well, before these were the old rules and I couldn't do this and people just didn't want to have us mingling. It's like this separation where it's like I came from the AV video side. They don't want to work with the print people. And I'm like, well, here it's a community. So you'll give us a different approach. You'll give us different perception on how to do things. And also like for photographers, again, like these are the conversations we'll have is, if you're a photographer, maybe you become your own production house because you're going to have a well of contacts. Maybe you just take like a % of the contacts that you have and just say like, yeah, I'd be happy to hook you up with so-and-so, cut me into whatever %.
Right.
Who knows? There's just so much opportunity.
So we're coming up on time. So when will information drop? How can people find out more about this? Or if it's invite only, how would someone get invited?
Well, if a raven flies over your house on the winter's harvest, so this is going to be in the spring. I'm aiming for early May for it to take place. This is going to be in LA, probably closer to Hollywood section. I'm going to do a whole drop on LinkedIn and then reach out to people individually as well. There's still more people I want to add to the group. So if you happen to know anybody that is very much about mental health awareness, people from the studio side, people on the creative side, people that are, cooks in fashion, anything that has to do with entertainment, please feel free to send them to me. You can email me at Andy Lerma no, I'm just kidding. You can see how we brought that full circle. It's for you, Andy. you can email me at Leonard@zaydecreative.com, but I'll give you all the information so you can find all that
Yeah,
there.
they can find it on the show in the show
Yeah, they'll
notes.
find it there.
Drop it there.
Make sure to like and subscribe on Coach Rico's podcast. And if you enter the code Coach Rico, it's you can enter in for a dinner with his family. It's awesome, guys. I'm telling you, it's the best.
Amazing. I do want to ask you a couple more things.
Yes.
So for folks getting into the, and then in your event, we'll tap into this, but want to tap into your Zoom now. If you could give your younger self some advice, or some folks that are in college right now or thinking about getting into the business, what advice would you give?
Keep going. Honestly, just keep going. And closed mouths don't get fed. Thank you, creative director, who will rename nameless at this current time, but he knows who he is. Just keep going. Honestly, just do creative that makes your life enjoyable, because you never know where it's going to expand. So I felt like I had to stay in a box when I was younger, because they just tell you, you're going to do this, then this, then this, and then that's it, to the end. But I will say, the last thing about grief is when you're going through someone who's passed, you go through all of their stuff. You come to understand that they were a person as well. And I think that's the total mind trip, is that you go through their whole history and you're like, wow, they were trying to do this, they were trying to do that. I found out my grandfather was trying to start his own company with a friend of his, but he was afraid to do it because this is a long time ago. And, the standards for the father figure was just to take care of the entire family. And that's it. So always do what's safe. And and then he got fired. And then till my grandmother's dying breath, always cursed the man that fired him. And I was like, that is spite to the end. And she was in her very late 80s, almost 90s. So I was to the very end. But what did that teach me? It taught me, it just really solidified the fact that you're on the right path. Do what just makes you happy, if you can. Even if you don't have the opportunity to just go all in because of whatever circumstances, whether it's financial or whatever the case is, chip away at it. Buy the domain name of what you want. Those little small steps, again, we'll do this for the event and talk about what are the small things that don't take much that will change your life. I started making a playlist. I never had made playlists before. I started listening to podcasts just last year. I just discovered, or no, maybe this year. You know what? I won't shame myself, but I just discovered podcasts. And through the algorithm, you came through and it was the AI gods are listening.
That's amazing, right? That those nuggets are definitely great for people to take away from this thing, and to remember, closed mouths don't get fed. But the thing that I want to talk about too is, yes, definitely chip away at the little things, but on the same token, don't let the little things hold you back, right? I've had so many people say oh, I haven't done it yet because I didn't buy the domain name, or I gotta go get a business license, or I have to file an LLC. To me, those are things if you're worrying about those things, that means you're in those are good problems to have. If you've built your thing so big that you're not worried about being sued or those things, but getting hung up on that stuff in the beginning it's just giving you another reason to not go after it, right?
Yeah.
Because you're oh, I have to send this thing to the city, a business permit. I don't want to
don't
have
get
to
hung up on that.
$35.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend don't get hung up on that. Just put your name on a business card and just start doing your thing, right? Take action, messy action. This is one of my things: is messy action is better than no action.
Yeah, the legal stuff is always what hangs people up. Again, the business stuff, because you hear, oh, I have to get a business license. This, honestly, you could just go to websites that are, I think I did mine through LegalZoom or something like that. But
it's $35 or something like that.
Yeah, there's so many different ways, and then it's just it was for me. LegalZoom should give me my money back, but for me, it was as easy as just buying a website. They walk me through the process, and then they send me the paperwork, and then I just do the paperwork, and I just chipped away at it. You know, it wasn't something that I had to spend every single day focusing on. And then I wasn't vocal about it. I just wanted to make sure that everything was where it needed to be. And then, you know, people want you to grow because they also get paid for helping you grow, you know?
Yeah. And you
So,
did it, right? The unit, if you want it bad enough,
yeah.
nothing will stop you.
Right.
So
And if you're afraid that people are afraid that they're going to like, you know, like shit on your dreams and stuff like that, let people just be people, you know, they're just going to say whatever they
yeah,
want. Also, they're really focused on themselves.
exactly.
They just,
People
they just need to
project.
survive.
Yeah. Like that's what, people, I try to help people coach through like that mindset is
Yeah.
we project on, or people project onto us
Yeah.
things that nobody else is thinking, right? I think I told you this when we first talked, right? Is if I walked out and had a huge zit on my face
Oh
and
gosh.
walked around, I'm probably thinking like, dude, they're
Yeah.
all looking at me because they got a zit on my face. And
Yeah.
the girl walking right up to me is probably
Yeah.
saying, oh, I'm having a bad hair day. He's looking at my hair.
Yeah.
Nobody is thinking
Nobody cares.
about like
Yeah.
other people. They're
Yeah.
really just projecting their insecurities. So if your desire, if you want it bad enough, is this something that you've been dreaming for all your life?
Yeah.
Already out of the gate, half the people aren't going to like what you do. Just
Yeah.
already just accept that half the people won't. You're
Yeah.
not talking to them.
Yeah.
You're talking to the half of the people that want what you have to offer, and they're
Yeah.
just waiting for someone like you to bring it
Yeah.
because
And
nobody has brought it yet.
embrace who you are, you know, that's such a big thing. Cause even then I feel like I had stuff that was still holding me back since last year, even though the company was still going and we're actively moving. And I was just like, oh, what if I don't do this and I don't do that? So like, where can you find me next? I'm going to be at South by Southwest. I'll be at CinemaCon, and I just bought tickets and I was like, these are the sober choices that I need to make that are a year from now. They're not a year, it's next month, but I just have to start, just diving in and saying like, I know you have to trust yourself. That's such a big thing, is like, trust the decisions that you're making, especially when you're sober minded and you feel like, what if I know I can do this? Just take that day and then just like do the research, get whatever you need to do, and put it in perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're at time, and
Oh,
Leonard, I'm definitely gonna have you back for sure. There's some stuff that I wanted
oh
to get into. Wanted
yeah,
to get into technology, things like that we
yeah,
didn't get into.
yeah.
So,
Next time,
well,
guys, we're going to solve racism. I'm telling you. And also, again, code Rico, dinner with the family. That's it.
yeah, we'll do it for during the event. If you want to have dinner, yeah, we should actually do that. Let's talk
Yeah,
seriously about that.
yeah.
If somebody wants to come have dinner after the event or during the event, like, let's make it happen.
We're making progress, people. That's it.
All right. Well, we got to call it a show.
Yeah.
Thank you, Leonard, for joining us. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you for having
Check us
me.
out next time, and we will see you in the next episode of Creative Leadership with Heart. Later.
Awesome. See ya. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Creative Leadership with Heart. If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe. If you're ready to make huge, lasting change in your life, then what are you waiting for? What will your life look like if you took action today? What would it look like if you didn't? If you're serious and you're ready, book your free strategy session today, and let's make your future a reality.